Today we're really getting into some pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's all centered around that sworn testimony from Wendy Williams, isn't it? In the Sean Diddy Combs trial.
Exactly. We're working from the reports by Inner City Press, and also discussion on that YouTube channel, What Is Me Starworth. They've got the verbatim federal courtroom testimony.
Which is crucial, right? This isn't just commentary anymore. It's under oath.
Right. So our mission here really is to unpack the biggest allegations and, well, the insights coming out of Wendy's testimony. It's not just about Diddy.
No, she brings in Jay-Z, Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry. It paints a picture of the wider industry.
Yeah, alleged patterns of behavior, potential cover-ups, and what she says happened to people, including herself, when they spoke out. That's what we're digging into.
And what's interesting right off the bat is just hearing Wendy Williams' voice, in this very different context. Someone known for gossip, now testifying legally.
Totally. It kind of reframes everything she said before, doesn't it? And we can sort of trace the lines now.
Exactly. We can look at her past statements versus these current allegations and the environment she claims she was operating in.
And she addresses that head on. She starts by saying, look, her past comments, they weren't about being messy or bitter.
She says she was trying to wake people up. That was her phrase.
Yeah, about Diddy and others. But she claims it came at a real cost. She talks about serious backlash.
Like what specifically?
Warnings from station managers, advertisers pulling their money, even alleged threats. And she tells this story about being chased by the group Total after she discussed them on her show.
Wow, chased. That's pretty extreme, if true. It definitely suggests a very strong reaction.
Absolutely. She said her career felt like a war zone, her words, every single time she brought up something about Diddy.
A war zone. But you sense she feels some vindication now, right? Testifying under oath.
Oh, definitely. Like after all these years, she's finally being heard in this, official capacity.
It does make you think about how and when certain truths get acknowledged publicly. Things dismissed as rumors now part of a federal case.
Exactly. So let's get into the specifics regarding Diddy himself. She claims he was basically protected by the industry.
Meaning, if you spoke against him, there were consequences.
That's the allegation. Swift repercussions. And more disturbingly, she described his parties, the so-called freak-offs.
Right, I remember hearing about those terms.
She didn't call them just parties. She said they were like operations or even rituals, highly structured.
Operations, what did that involve, according to her?
She mentioned things like mandatory NDAs just to be there, candle escorts leading people around, assigned rooms, and this expectation that you had to participate.
That sounds incredibly controlled and frankly quite chilling. The NDA part, the assigned rooms.
It does, and those details, as you know, seem to echo some elements in the actual federal indictment against Diddy. There's a disturbing consistency maybe emerging.
Yeah, that alignment is hard to ignore. What else did she say about those events?
Well, she brought up Karen Superhead Stephens again, how Stephens had described on air being at a Diddy party and being asked to, facilitate interactions between men.
Right, Wendy aired that interview multiple times, didn't she?
She did. She testified she felt it was vital for people to hear that account. And she also said she spoke to people who described IV bags and medical assistants being present at these events.
IV bags? That lines up with some details reported from the indictment, too, suggesting maybe medical intervention was needed sometimes.
That's the implication, yeah. And remember her old comments about baby oil? Seemed random then.
Vaguely, yeah.
Well, now she claims that was based on actual information she received and points to the large quantity reportedly found as some kind of dark confirmation.
Okay, the convergence of these details, the NDAs, the alleged medical staff, these specific items, it paints a really grim picture, if proven true. A picture of alleged exploitation and enforced silence.
Then she turned to Diddy's relationship with Cassie Ventura. She talked about raising concerns early on.
About the age difference mainly. Or something else.
The age difference, yes, but also what she saw as a clear power imbalance. She said Cassie seemed like a scared girl. Not someone just enjoying the high life.
A scared girl. That's a stark assessment.
And she reminded the court how she'd talked on her show back then about Diddy allegedly having access to Cassie's phones, just showing up unannounced, getting hotel staff to unlock Cassie's door for him.
That suggests a real lack of autonomy for Cassie, if true. Intense control.
Yeah. And Wendy looked back at old interviews where Cassie seemed maybe uncomfortable or nervous.
Right, people often just said she was shy or nervous on camera.
But Wendy now interprets that differently. She sees it not just as nerves, but maybe signs of trauma.
Hindsight casting things in a different light.
And interestingly, she links this back to her own career trouble, claiming she lost sponsors after reporting on both Diddy and Jay-Z, suggesting maybe a connection there in terms of who is being protected.
So speaking out about either figure potentially had consequences. That's the implication.
That seems to be her claim. Which brings us neatly to Jay-Z.
Okay, how does he fit into her testimony about Diddy?
Well, Wendy basically argued you can't fully discuss Diddy's alleged actions without talking about the people she believes stood by him. And she named Jay-Z specifically.
And what was her focus regarding Jay-Z?
It went back to his early work with Foxy Brown, when Foxy was reportedly just 15 years old.
Right, his protege back in the day.
Wendy actually read out explicit lyrics from Foxy's debut album. Lyrics she alleged Jay-Z wrote for a 15-year-old Foxy.
Wow. Reading explicit lyrics, allegedly written by an adult man for a teenage girl, into the court record. That's quite a statement.
It definitely raises serious questions about appropriateness and, again, power dynamics,
Absolutely. Ethical considerations about content creation for young artists, especially back then.
She also talked about rumors of Jay-Z giving Foxy really lavish gifts, providing lots of support, again, highlighting that age and power gap she saw.
Okay, so establishing that dynamic, then what?
Then it got, well, more specific. She brought up the rumor of some kind of tape involving Jay-Z, Foxy Brown, and Jamie Foxx.
A tape. I feel like I've heard whispers about that over the years.
Exactly. And Wendy testified that this tape allegedly disappeared after Foxy Brown's home was burglarized. She pointedly asked the court if that sounded like a coincidence.
Suggesting it wasn't a coincidence at all? That adds a potentially much darker layer to the allegations.
Indeed. And then Wendy made a direct claim about her own career. She said she was fired from her top-rated radio show right after she suggested there should be an investigation into Jay-Z's relationships with underage girls.
Fired for suggesting an investigation.
That's what she testified. She said she was branded toxic for even raising the issue. And furthermore, she alleged Jay-Z's team actively tried to blacklist people in the industry who talked about Foxy Brown.
So again, that theme of alleged silencing. If you speak out about certain powerful people,
You face consequences. That's the pattern she's describing.
Okay, so that covers Diddy and Jay-Z.
Good.
What about Oprah and Tyler Perry? How did they come up?
Wendy talked about this idea of a hidden list in Hollywood. People you just do not cross, untouchables.
And she put Oprah and Tyler Perry on that list.
She did. She specifically claimed Tyler Perry blackballed her after she had some kind of falling out with the team behind the movie Precious, which they were both involved in.
Blackballed? How did that manifest, according to her?
She described going from getting invites to everything, being part of the scene, to suddenly being completely shut out, frozen out. And she attributed this freeze out largely to Oprah's influence.
The idea of an unspoken power hierarchy, deciding who's in and who's out. It's a common trope about Hollywood, but hearing it alleged so directly is something else.
And then she shared something deeply personal and quite shocking.
What was that?
She testified that she had confided in Oprah, told her about her own past experiences with abuse, shared that vulnerability,
Right.
and then later, while Wendy felt she was being blackballed, she saw her alleged abuser being interviewed on Oprah's show.
Wait, Oprah interviewed the person Wendy had confided about abusing her, while Wendy felt excluded by Oprah's circle.
That's the claim. Wendy stated she didn't see it as a coincidence. She saw it as a deliberate message, a deliberate act.
That is a profoundly disturbing allegation. A real claimed betrayal.
And she mentioned something else in email, apparently accidentally forwarded to her with the subject line, Managing Optics, Wendy Puff Tyler.
Managing Optics, Wendy Puff Tyler.
Yeah.
That sounds like PR speak for damage control, doesn't it? Suggesting coordinated communication.
Precisely. Wendy's takeaway was that these powerful figures are all part of this big machine that protects itself primarily through silence. Enforced silence.
A self-protective system.
Wow.
What else did she present? You mentioned documents.
Yeah, she claimed she had a whole collection. NDAs, email chains, internal memos, stuff she says insiders gave her because they were fed up with the alleged abuse and the cover-ups.
Insiders turning over documents. That could be significant.
Could be. She read from one sample NDA that apparently had a clause mentioning public retaliation if the agreement was violated.
Public retaliation. That sounds pretty threatening for an NDA clause.
Yeah. Doesn't it? She also shared details from what she said was an internal hotel email laying out preparations for Diddy's suite, specifically mentioning the need for discretion measures.
So evidence of organized efforts to keep things quiet, potentially.
That's what she suggested. along with alleged proof of payments to publicists, managers, even bloggers, supposedly to shape the narrative around Diddy, to manage his image.
Paying people to control the story. Again, painting a picture of a very structured operation.
She even showed a photo from a 2019 gala Diddy, Tyler Perry, and a well-known crisis management consultant all together, suggesting maybe strategic planning around PR issues even back then.
The timing is interesting, connecting those figures with crisis management.
And finally, on this point, she claims she herself was offered a big syndicated TV deal.
A TV deal? For what?
The alleged condition was her silence, staying quiet on certain topics, presumably the ones she'd been vocal about.
So, offered a major career opportunity in exchange for silence.
That's her testimony. She said she refused it, chose to pay the price, as she put it. And her comment on that was cutting. The silence they bought cost others their freedom, their peace, their truth.
That really brings it back to the alleged human cost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Beyond the industry mechanics, the impact on individuals.
Absolutely. And that led into her conclusion. She stressed that this trial, for her, it isn't just about Diddy.
It's about the whole system.
The whole ecosystem, she called it, that allegedly protected him, enabled him. She described this legacy of silence. A tower built on fear, on NDAs, on power plays.
The Tower of Silence, that's a powerful image.
And she insisted that many others in the industry knew, witnessed things, maybe even facilitated the alleged abuse. They were part of that silence.
So, potentially widespread complicity, or at least enabling through inaction.
That's the picture she painted. And she brought back her famous quote, "You know the one."
I would rather be right in hell than be silent in heaven.
That's the one. And her very final thought in this part of the testimony was that this trial, it's not the end, it's the beginning of people finally naming names.
So she sees this as a potential catalyst for broader revelations within the industry.
Seems like it. So if we try to summarize the core of her testimony, it's really this argument about a powerful, interconnected system in entertainment.
A system designed, allegedly, to protect certain figures like Diddy, using things like NDAs, industry pressure, maybe blacklisting.
Right, and silencing anyone who tried to expose alleged wrongdoing. The aha moments for me were those specific details, the NDA clauses, the managing optics email, the alleged TV offer for silence.
And the connections she explicitly drew between Diddy, Jay-Z, Oprah, Tyler Perry, suggesting it wasn't just isolated incidents, but part of a larger pattern, in her view.
Yeah, the consistency between what she said on her show years ago, which got her labeled messy,
And what she's now stating under oath, facing potential perjury charges if she lies. That consistency is striking, especially given the backlash she claims she endured.
it really makes you think about who gets believed and when, doesn't it? And the risks people take.
Definitely. Which kind of leads us to the final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah. Think about the implications if a system like the one Wendy describes actually exists or existed, not just in entertainment, but maybe in other powerful industries too.
What does it actually take for those kinds of towers of silence to start crumbling? Is it legal action? Is it whistleblowers?
And what role does public awareness play? You know, the kind sparked when someone, like Wendy claims she did, decides to speak out, despite the potential personal cost.
It's a lot to consider. The power of truth versus the power of silence and influence.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.